Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. And this afternoon, we'll be looking at market analysis. Market analysis. Market analysis. Now, I'll start by asking the question, what exactly is market analysis? What exactly is market analysis? Now, when we talk about market analysis can be defined as any methodology that can be used to forecast the direction of price movements. So from here, you can see that when we talk about market analysis is any methodology that can be used to forecast price movement. And the truth is, when it comes to market analysis, there are millions of methodology out there. There are millions of methodology. Now, all you need is just a methodology that works for you. That is a methodology that tells you how to predict the direction of a market. So any methodology that helps you to predict how to analyze market. Now, if your methodology is just you wake up in the morning, you pray to God and say, Father, please help me to project the direction of price movement, and you feel it works, and you feel God answers your prayer, seriously, that is your methodology. So it's not a must that it's anything, in as much as you can correctly predict the direction of the market, then you have a methodology. And as I said, we have millions of methodology, and that's why I do tell traders that you shouldn't ignore the association of traders. That is, never feel you know too much. Why do I say this? Because fine, you may think you have a methodology that is making you money, but when you hear the money someone else is making, you'll be like, wow. And that's why, as a trader, you need to always be hungry to look for more knowledge. Be hungry, be willing to mingle with traders, because you don't know that methodology that they are using that's earning them millions, whereas you are just using a methodology that's earning you naira. That's earning you just maybe $100. Why some people are using the same methodology, another methodology that's earning them much more. So you don't want to ignore that opportunity. And that's why, as a trader, you don't want to ignore mingling with other traders. Just do as if you don't know. Learn. Because that is one thing that makes you keep growing in this business, ability to learn. Unlearn and relearn. That's it. Okay. So let's go on. Now, when it comes to trading the financial market, when we talk about market analysis, there are basically three different ways you can analyze the market. There are basically three different ways you can analyze the market. Now, let's look at the three different ways. The first one is the sentimental analysis. The sentimental analysis. Now, the second one is what we call the fundamental analysis. Fundamental analysis. While the third one is now what we call the technical analysis. So whatever analysis you are using should be within this framework. So it's either you're using sentimental, it's either you're using fundamental, or it's either you're using technical. And the truth is this, I do tell people, saying that, oh, I'm a fundamental trader, I'm not a technical trader, or I'm a sentimental trader, I'm not a technical trader, I'm not a fundamental trader, is still lack of knowledge. Because one thing I know is one of these analysis is good, but when you combine the three together, it makes it much more better. It makes it much more better. So it is good that you try as much as possible to combine all this knowledge together, and it's going to give you a better result. A better result. If we are together, please type in a yes on the chat box. If we are together, please type in a yes on the chat box. So what this means is, as a trader, you do not want to ignore using one strategy against another strategy. You do not want to ignore one strategy against another strategy. You will prefer to combine all the strategy together to get a better opportunity of a trade. So now let's pick them one after the other and let's talk about. So basically for today, we'll be looking at just the first two, while we'll leave the third one for tomorrow. We'll be looking at the first two. So let's start with the sentimental analysis. Now, what do we mean by the sentimental analysis? What do we mean by the sentimental analysis? Now, basically, when we talk about the sentimental analysis help us to look at other traders' view about a particular currency. It helps us to know, it helps us to predict, it helps us to know what other traders are doing in the financial market. It helps us to know other traders' opinion about a particular currency pair. Because one thing is this, as a trader, what makes a market move in a particular direction is not just about your money. It's because many traders believe that the market is going to go in a particular direction, and that is why they buy into it, and that is what is moving the market. So all you need to do is, if you are able to get majority opinion about a particular currency pair, then you have the tendency to trade it and make money. Okay, let's use an example. Okay, if you have heard about Bitcoin, please type in a yes on the chat box. If you have heard about Bitcoin, please type in a yes on the chat box. If you have not heard, if you don't know anything about Bitcoin, type in no on the chat box. So I want to believe that everyone here has heard about Bitcoin. Now, let's look at a little about Bitcoin. I can remember in 2009, 1 unit of Bitcoin was less than $100. 1 unit of Bitcoin was less than $100. And I want to believe that at least most of us here around that period will have heard about Bitcoin. Now, if you know you heard about Bitcoin earlier than now, before now, that price has really gone high, maybe around 2009, can you type in 1 on the chat box? If you know you've heard about Bitcoin before now, maybe around 2001, thank you, Mr. Rag. Yeah. Now, the question is, Mr. Rag, did you buy Bitcoin then? Yes or no? Did you buy Bitcoin? No, that's it. That's it. Many people around that period heard about it, but we did not. And that's how it works. Now, some people heard about it. They felt, okay, I want to take the risk. I want to take the decision, and they bought it. Now, the same 1 unit of Bitcoin that was less than $100 in 2009 went as high as $64,000. Same 1 unit of Bitcoin. $64,000, same unit of Bitcoin. Now, for those that have been updating themselves about coin of late, will have heard about Shiba Inu. If you heard about Shiba Inu, type in 2 on the chat box. If at one point or the other you heard about Shiba Inu, type in 2 on the chat box. Good. Thank you, Mr. Lighton. Mr. Lighton, did you buy Shiba Inu? Yes or no? Did you buy it? Did you buy it? No, not yet. Good. Now, let me share something with you. I'm going to share my chart with you now. Look at Shiba Inu. If you can see my chart, please type in 1. If you can see my chart, please type in 1. Okay, good. Look at this coin. This is Shiba Inu. Now, this is just last month. The move started last month. In 1 month, we can see that this coin is not even up to $1. As at last month, we could see Shiba Inu was around 0.000. We have how many zeros? We have 5 zeros before number counting. Now let's try to look at how many percent price moved within 1 month. So I'm going to move it, my cursor, from here to this point. Look at it. Within 1 month, Shiba Inu moved 1,150%. 1,150% up move within 1 month. It's just, look at it, it's just one candle. It's just one candle between this month we just finished, this month, October. You heard about it. Funny enough, some people heard about it, bought it while it was at this lower point, and look at the move, 1,150%. Now, it means that if you have decided and you bought $100, you just, you used $1,000 to buy Shiba Inu. Who can tell me how much will you have made now? Because we can see that the coin moved as high as 1,000%. If you invested $1,000 on Shiba Inu, how much will you have made at the end of this month? At the end of the last month, who can tell me how much will you have made if price has moved? $10,000. Thank you. No, it's even more than 10,000. Because if you bought $1,000 and price moved 1,000%, okay, that's 10,000. That's 10,000. So it means with your $1,000, you have made $10,000. That is 9,000 profit on your account. That is how it works. Now, the question is, let's try and look at how many months is this coin? How many months? We can see the candles I can see is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 candles. The most recent one, which is this month, 7 candles. This candle, this coin is just 7 months old. 7 months old, and it has moved 1,000 plus pips, percent, not even pips now, 1,000 plus pips. Now, the question is, what was able to move this price? It is basically sentiment, because immediately the coin came out, it started the move. Now, I was watching an interview before this class this morning, and they were talking about Shiba Inu. And the interviewer was asking a person, he asked and said, he said, what is moving this coin? What is moving the coin Shiba Inu? And when this interviewer said, he said, well, we cannot predict what really is moving the coin. But he said what he noticed was that it is just the picture of the dog that people saw. The picture of the dog that people saw was what was moving it. And why was it? Now, if you remember before now, people believe Doge is going to go high. People believe Doge is going to go high. But yes, Doge moved at one point. It also has a picture of the dog. It moved at one point, but the rate at which it moved wasn't like Shiba Inu. Now, it was that same dog. Now, the question is, why didn't Doge move as Shiba Inu moved? Should I tell you the reason? The reason is every coin has a purpose of creation. Every coin has a purpose why it was established. Now, if you try to look at the purpose why Doge was established, it has no purpose. It was created for fun. The guy that created it just said, I want to create it for fun. But when you look at the purpose of Shiba Inu, it has a purpose. And the dog also helped it. That is exactly what moves it. So all these things, it is just basically people's sentiment. They just like the picture of the dog. That's it. And because they were able to combine the picture of the dog with what? With the purpose of the coin. That was what made it go this high. Sentiment. And before we knew it, over time, we noticed that what? We noticed that people begin to hype the coin beyond what we expected. And it was the noise that really moved the coin. It was the noise. Mr. Lighton is asking me, what is the purpose? That is the essence of your Google. I'm not here to baby feed you. We are here to just give you information. So you can go to Google and just type the purpose of Shiba Inu. You will get it there. Everything is on the internet. So please, Mr. Lighton, you can do more research on that. Thank you. Thank you. So here I am just trying to explain the power of sentimental analysis. Now, initially, the coin came out like any other coin. People saw the dog there and they loved the dog. And before we know it, what happened? People begin to make the noise. People begin to make the noise. And it was the noise that really made people to buy the coin. It was the noise. And that is basically sentimental. So when you begin to hear people make noise about something, it means that people will begin to believe in it. And before you know it, everything continues to go up. Everything continues to make sense. And it moves. So that's why we say, when we talk about sentimental analysis, it just has to do with people's opinion about something. People, and when we say people's opinion, it's the same thing as rumor. Just hearing rumor about something. So people base their decision on rumor. And before you know it, people begin to invest money into it. And that was what makes it go up. So basically, sentimental analysis has to do with people's opinion about something, rumor that you hear. When you begin to hear rumor about something, Bitcoin that went that high, it got to a point that the rumor was everywhere. Bitcoin is going to go up, Bitcoin is going to go up, it's going to go up, it's going to go up. And that was what moved it. People begin to buy it. So all you need to do is, for you to really take advantage of something, begin to listen what coin are people making. Then you do your research. What is the purpose of the coin? Now, if a coin doesn't have a purpose, it has no tendency of moving, because the big guys will not want to invest their money in something without a major purpose. That is true. So when you combine people's rumor with a reasonable purpose, then it has the possibility of moving. So let's go on. Let's go on. Okay, if you are together, please type in a yes on the chat box. If we are together, please type in a yes on the chat box. Oh, perfect, perfect. So basically, that is all about the sentimental analysis. It's just basically rumor. It's basically people's opinion about something. So just keep your mind at rest. Always listen to traders' communication. Always listen to news. Try to look at what people are saying about a particular currency. Try to look at what people's opinion are, and combine that with other things, and you make money. So let's go to the next one, which is the fundamental analysis. The fundamental analysis. The fundamental analysis. Now, when we talk about the fundamental analysis, what exactly is the fundamental analysis? Basically, the fundamental analysis can be defined as a way of judging or analyzing the market by looking at the economy, the social, and the geopolitical. Let me write it down. So fundamental analysis is a way of judging, or analyzing the markets by looking at the economy, social, and the geopolitical forces that affect demand and supply. So when we talk about fundamental analysis, which is what we'll be looking in detail. So when we talk about fundamental analysis, it is basically a way of judging or analyzing the market by looking at the economy, the social, and the geopolitical forces that affect demand and supply. Now, what do we mean by this? Now, when you look at the chart, you see price moving. Now, the price is moving doesn't mean it just feels like moving. There are other forces that is behind the movement of the chart. And most of these forces is the fundamental analysis. Most of these forces is the fundamental analysis. And when we talk about the fundamental analysis, based on my definition, I said it has to do with you looking at the economy, the social, and the geopolitical forces that affect supply and demand. Now, when we look at it, let's look at these in a clearer picture. So when we want to talk about the factors that affect the news, I want to talk about this is basically in three different opinions, three different views. Now, the first one has to do, okay. The first one is what we call the planned event. Planned events. Now, when I say planned event, what do I mean by this? Now, when you see that there's going to be a news, it means that maybe publication will tell us that, oh, this social group of people are going to have a news on social day, the planned event or news. Now, just like, let's say the OPEC decides to have a meeting. Let's say the OPEC decides to have a meeting. Now, when they decide to have a meeting, it means that that information will have been released before the meeting date, in which you as a trader already have an information that there will be a meeting. If we are together, please let's type in a yes on the chat. Now, another thing, good. Now, another thing is, let's assume that the central bank governor of a particular country decides to have a speech on a particular day. That information will be held before that news is released. Let's assume the Bank of Japan, their governor decides to have a speech. Now, they will have posted it that there will be a speech by the governor of the Bank of Japan. So this information is a planned event. Now, with this, what will you do? You will be waiting to see what he has to say when the news comes out. So these are planned events in which what he says, it has a possibility of moving the market. That's it. Fundamental analysis. So what the governor of the Bank of Japan has to say has a possibility of having an effect on the economy, on the country's currency. So that's about the planned event. Now we have the second one, which is the unplanned event. Now, when we talk about the unplanned, it means that an event occurred, but it was not planned for. Let's assume there was a crisis. Nobody planned that there will be a crisis, but when a crisis happens, it happens, and it has an effect on the market. And that is where we have the social news. So as a trader, you need to ask yourself, you need to update yourself. What is happening in US? What is happening in Japan? What is happening in Australia? Because all these happenings has impact on the market. Let's assume there's an earthquake. When an earthquake happens in US, it has a possibility of affecting the financial markets. And that's why we call it unplanned, and it's under the social effect of the social factors. The social factors. So these are unplanned events. That is, crisis could happen. And we all know when a negative crisis happens, it will have a negative impact on the financial market. So it means that as a trader, you need to update yourself with what is happening in a particular country at a particular period of time. If we are together, please wave your hands. If we are still together, please wave your hands. Good. Now the third one has to do with news. That is news that has data. News that has data. All these news that has data, they are under the economic news. The news that has the economy news. These are economy that has data, and all these data has impact on the financial market. So as a trader, you need to understand all these things so that you will not stick with one of the fundamentals, ignoring the other. Now, if you are sticking with just the fundamentals, the economic fundamentals, that is the one that has data, ignoring the unplanned one. Remember, the unplanned event, you will not see it under the economic calendar. You will only see or hear about it when you listen to news about a particular country. So it's not just about you looking at the economic calendar and ignoring others. You need to combine all these fundamentals to have a profitable trading. Okay, now let's, for the purpose, remember, for the unplanned, you don't need to look at news. But for the planned, I'm going to be giving us, we're going to be looking in detail about looking at a website to see, we'll be looking at a website to see how to get information about this planned event and this news. Why for the unplanned, all you need to do is update yourself with whatever is happening in a particular country. So for the planned event and the news, we'll be looking at the website. And what's the website? Let me drop it here. The website is www.forexfactory. This is the most common website that traders use, www.forexfactory.com. It's the most common website that traders use. So you click on this, then I will be sharing the website now. Okay, so let me share my slide, the website. Okay, can you see this? So if you want to see this, just go to your browser and go click on www.forexfactory. You can see it's bringing it out already. Forexfactory.com. Just click on it and click enter. So it's going to bring it out. So you will have something like this. So this is how the Forex Factory works. Now, the first thing is, what will you do? Let me guide you on what to do when you get it. The first thing is look at your date. Look at it. Look at this. Can you see this? Or look at this. Look at this. Now look at this date and compare it with the date. Look at this time and compare it with the time on your laptop or your phone. You can see it's either you use this opposite time or you use the time here and try to compare it with the time on your phone or on your laptop. This time must tally to get a proper and correct information. It must tally. Just go to your browser, come to the website, and when you do that, try to look at the time. Try to look at the time. The time must tally with the time on your system or your phone. Now, when you notice they don't tally, what will you do? Click on the time. Click on the time here. When you click on the time, it's going to bring you to something like this. Then look at the time zone. Try to pick the West Central Africa, if you're in Nigeria or in Africa. Just pick the West Central Africa, if you're in Nigeria or Africa as a whole. Then when you click on this, then you can click on Save Settings. You can click on Save Settings. Now, the moment you click on Save Setting, you can see it's going to bring you to something like this. Just come back to this home page and click on the home page. Then it's going to take you back to the news. Click on the home page. You can see you're back here. Now, what are those things you want to take note of? What are those things you want to look at? Now, let's go. Let's go. The first thing is to look at the dates. Let's look at the dates. The first thing is to look at the dates. So you can see the dates from here. Look at the dates. So make sure the date you are looking at is the current date. That's the date of today. Look at the date. Now, after doing that, the next thing is to come to this point, which is going to tell you the time of the news. So this, if your time is correct, then you're going to get your local time. So whatever time you see here is your local time for the news. So you're going to change it to your local time and tell you when the news will be released. And the third one is the currency. That is, what currency will this news affect? What currency will this news affect? So if you have JPY, it means that the news is on Japanese yen. If you have AUD, it means that the news is on Australian dollar. If you have CNY, it means the news is on Chinese yen. If you have GBP, it means the news is on Great Britain pound, like that and like that. So this will help you to know what currency this news affect. And the next one is what we call the impact of the news. The impact of the news. Now, what does this mean? It is not all the news that have impact on the currency. It is not all the news that have impact on the market. And that is why you don't want to just enter a trade ignoring the fact that the news wouldn't have impact on the market. Now, how do you take advantage of this impact? Now, let's look at it. Basically, under the impact, we have 4 different categories. We have 4 different categories. So let's pick them one after the other. Now, we can see, you will see them, you will be able to differentiate them with colors. You'll be able to differentiate them. The first impact is the one that has a gray color. Now, when you see a news with a gray color, what does this mean? It means that the news doesn't have any economic impact on the currency. It doesn't have any economic impact. Now, if you look at this, you can see this news is just telling us a bank holiday. It's just an information that the bank has an holiday. And which bank is it? Japanese yen. So it means that for this day, for today, all the Japan banks are closed. That is just the information. So it's telling us that the Japan banks are closed for today. That is the information. So this doesn't have any information, any impact on the market, just telling us, giving us an information that the bank are on holiday today. Now, the second one is the yellow column. The second one, when it comes to the impact, is the yellow column. Now, when we have the yellow color, it means that it has a low impact. Its impact is low. Its impact is very low. It has a low impact on the economy. When you have a yellow color, it means we have a low impact on the economy. So every news you see here, its impact on the chart won't be much. Now, the third one is the orange. We have the orange here. We have another orange here. That's it. So the orange color means that it has a medium impact on the currency. It has a medium impact on the currency, the orange color. It has a medium impact on the currency. And lastly, we have the red. As we all know, when you see red, it means it's bloody. So the red means that it has a high impact on the currency. It has a high impact on the currency. So this is just an information telling us that this, whatever news you're looking at, this is the impact it has on the currency. If we are together, please type in 1 on the chat box. If we are together, please type in 1 on the chat box. Okay, good. Thank you. Now let's go to this next one. Now the next one is the description of the news, the description. So we can get the description here. So we can see every information. So if you see this, this news is on Euro and it's telling you ECB President Lagarde speaks. So we have this on Euro also, it's telling us unemployment rate. So you can see that this is just a speech. It's a speech. So it doesn't have economic data. It's just a speech. So when you see this, you can now go and try to look at what is the president going to say? What is he going to say? What is he going to say? So you can now go and look at details more, because this has given you an information that there's going to be a speech today by the President Lagadi. Are we together? Now, let's look at the economy data, that is those news that have data. How do you interpret them? How do you interpret when you have a news that has data? How do you interpret them? Now, to interpret it, all you need to do is, first of all, you want to know what the news entails. So to know what the news entails, you can get that from the details. So you can see we have details here. And you see an envelope. So depending on the type of news you want to read about, you can just click on it. So when you click on it, you'll be able to get the details of the news. Look at it. So if you look at it, what is the source of this news? You can see it's telling us the source of the news is Eurostat. The source of the news is Eurostat. And what does it measure? It measures now the news is unemployment rate. Unemployment rate. You can see, what does it measure? It measures the percentage of the total workforce that is unemployed and actively seeking employment during the previous month. So number one, you can see that this month, this news is a monthly news, and it measures the total number of people that really wants to work, but they don't have job. And that's why we have unemployment rate. Now, let's look at how you now take advantage of it. How do you take advantage of it? Now, to take advantage of it, then you come to what? This point, the usual effect, the usual effect. And now, when you're taking advantage of it, when you want to interpret a news, you don't have anything to do with the previous news. That is, maybe if it's a monthly news, the previous month, you don't have anything. Now, when you want to interpret and take advantage of news, what you are doing is you will be comparing the forecast from the actual. You will be comparing the forecast from the actual. Now, when we say forecast, what do we mean by this? These are people's opinion even before the news is being released. So before the news is being released, you begin to see what people think will be the resultant effect of this news. So it's basically sentimental analysis of a particular news, even before it is being released. That is the forecast. So it means that you are comparing what people feel with what really happened. Now let's look at it. We can see here, they made us understand that when the actual is lesser than the forecast, then it is good for the currency. Now, let me make this easier. Let me ask a question. Remember, this news, what it measures is, it measures unemployment rate. Now, when we see that we have more unemployed people in a particular country, is it good for the is it good for the currency, or is bad for the currency? We can answer that. If we have more unemployed people in a particular country, is it good for the currency or bad for the currency? We can answer that. It is bad. Thank you. Thank you. And that is why the effect says when the actual is lesser than the forecast, then it is good for the currency, because for this particular interpretation, they prefer that what? They prefer that the people that are unemployed must be lower. And that's what they say when the result comes out, when the people that are unemployed are lower, then it is good for the currency. Please, I want to be sure, is it making sense? Is it making sense? Please, I want to be sure. I want to be sure you're getting me. Is it making sense? Yes, okay, good. So from this, because the result of the news is saying when the actual is lesser, that is, when the number of people that don't have a job is reducing, then it is good for the currency. And who can tell me, when they say something is good for the currency, what will happen? When they say something is good for the currency, what will happen? Is it going to buy or sell? Is it going to buy? When it says something is good for the currency, is it going to buy or sell? It will buy. Thank you. It will buy. Thank you very much. So we can see that. Then let's now look at how to now, what will now happen. Let's look at what will now, we've explained it. So now when you see this interpretation and you now understand the news, then you now wait for the result of the news. Now look at it. Look at this. Under the result of the news, we can see we have the actual and we have the forecast. This is what you're waiting for. So if we go back to the news, let's go back to that particular news we're looking at. We have seen the actual and the forecast. Okay. Okay, this is the news, unemployment rate. Now, when the news came out, what happened? When the news came out, we can see what happened. Now, we notice that the same result, the actual is equals to the forecast. That was what happened. So what this means is there is no economical effect of the news. It is the same. That's what it is. It is the same. It is the same. It is the same. Now, let me try to explain how to interpret a news. Before we go on, let me try to explain how to interpret a news. Now, depending on the news, if they say, when, let's say, for example, they say when the actual is greater, than the forecast, and they say it is good for the currency. How will you trade it? How will you take advantage of this? Let me explain this. How will you take advantage of this? Now, let's assume that the news is on US dollars. Let's assume the news is on US dollars. Now, how do you take advantage? All you need to look at is this. In as much as US dollar is the base currency, I taught you base and quotes yesterday. In as much as US dollar is the base, and we have XXS, that is any other currency, as a quote. Because they said when the actual is greater than the forecast, then it is good for the economy, for the currency. Then what will you do? You enter for a buy. You will enter for a buy. In as much as US dollar is the base currency. But on the other side, if you have any other currency and the US dollar as a quote, what will you do? You enter for a sell. Now, this is a scenario whereby the actual is greater than the forecast. But let's assume that when the result came out, the actual was lesser than the forecast. Now, what happens? The reverse will be the case. So what it means is USD XXX, you will sell, and XXX USD, you will buy. Please, if you understand this, type in yes. If you don't, type in no. If you understand this, type in yes. If you don't understand, type in no. Good. Thank you, Mr. David. Thank you, Mr. David. Yeah, I'm waiting for others. Thank you, Mr. Rag. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So I want to believe everybody understands. So this is how you interpret it. So anytime it is actual is greater than forecast, then you know how to which one to buy and which one to sell. So now let's try and interpret. Let's try and look at other news and see how it works. Now let's look at this particular news. This news was released today by 3 p.m. This news was released today by 3 p.m. Now let's read about the news. Let's read about the news. Now, if you look at the news, you can see that this news is released by the Institute for Supply Management. Institute for Supply Management. And what does it measure? It measures the level of a division index based on survey purchasing manager, excluding the manufacturing industry. So what this measures, it measures the purchasing managers. That is the cost organization use when it comes to purchasing of an item. But you will see they wrote excluding the manufacturing industry. So any other industry excluding the manufacturing, how much do they use to purchase? Now let's look at it. What is the effect? Here we can see that they say when the actual is greater than the forecast, then it is good for the currency. When the actual is greater than the forecast, it is good for the currency. Now, when the result came out, let's look at it. Look at the forecast. The forecast is 61.9. But when the result came out, it was 66.7. 66.7. Now, what does this mean? Will it buy or sell? Who can tell us? Based on this news and its interpretation, will it strengthen the US dollar? We can see that this news is on US dollar. Is it good for US dollar? Is it bad for US dollar? Based on the result of this news, who can tell me? Is it good for US dollar or was it bad? Good, good. Buy. Yes, that's good. Good. Thank you, Mr. Olight. Or Mr. Olight was saying you are going to buy if it US dollar is the base currency. That is perfect. That is perfect. That's how you interpret. So this is how you interpret. So if you want to trade news, all you need to do is wait for the news to be released. Now, if you look at this, we have by 5 o'clock, we have another news. But look at this. This is a spoken news. It doesn't have data. You can see BOE, Governor Bali speaks. So this is what Bank of England, the governor of the Bank of England has a speech by 5 p.m. today. So this is not a database news. It's a speech. It's a speech. Now, by 7 p.m., we also have a news. We call it the FOMC news, FOMC statement. And you can see that this is also another, it's a spoken word. It's a spoken word. That's why we have the statement. So it's not a data. And that's why we don't have any forecast or actual or previous here, because they are spoken words. And we can see we have another news by 7 p.m. But this one is database, federal funds rates. Now let's read it and let's look at how to take advantage of this by 7 p.m. today. Now let's look at what this federal fund rate. Let's look at what does it mean. We can see that the source is the Federal Reserve. The source is the Federal Reserve, and it measures the interest rate at which the depository institution lend balance held. Depository institution lend balances held at the Federal Reserve to other depository institution overnight. So we can see that this is what the rate of interest rate that people lend when they want to lend money to another institution. It means that this is the interest rate they will be using to pay back their money. And we can see that this news, they said the effect, when the actual is greater than forecast, then it is good for the currency. When the actual is greater than the forecast, it is good for the currency. Now, if you look at this, this is the actual, 0.25%. So you will now wait for the forecast. If the result comes out and the actual is greater, then you say you will buy if US dollars is the base currency, while you sell if US dollar is the quote currency. So all you need to do is wait for this news to come out and see what the resultant effect will be. So this is how we trade using the fundamentals. So you can see how to use the platform, you can see how to interpret the news, and you can see how to take advantage of it. Any questions so far? Any question? Any question? So with this, we've come to the end of our training.